Listen, you smell something?
Human emotions are materializing in the form of a viscous psychoreactive plasm with explosive supernormal potential.
What a discovery, a psychoreactive substance.
Do you know what this equipment is used for?
Boggle or Super Mario Brothers?
We'll have fun!
Yeah! They're still doing it. Really quite good work there.
My friend, don't be a jerk.
We've got no choice. Call the Ghostbusters.
Super Jackpot!
Welcome to Extraplasm Podcast. It's the only podcast on the internet that wants someone to extend the Ghostbusters mobile fleet beyond Ecto-1, Ecto-C, and Ecto-Z with a ride-on mower, with sirens, and a gunner seat. I mean, come on, that would be awesome. I would mow my lawn every single day this summer. It would probably kill my grass as a result of the abuse of my lawn over the season, but who cares? It would have sirens and a gunner seat. I'm your host, Jim Maritato, aka Vankmaniac on the internet, and I'm happy to bring you this week's episode as we're joined by Acei Martin. Acei is the actress and stunt performer who doubled McKenna Grace for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and who portrayed Phoebe Spengler during the practical driving and gunner seat sequences in the movie's opening moments. Acei has worked on TV and film projects such as Gossip Girl and the Walking Dead spin-off projects Dead City and The Ones Who Live, and many, many more things. It was an absolute delight to chat with her, and I'm super excited to bring you this conversation this week, especially because Acei is somebody who I've wanted to talk to since like way back in last June, when we first saw pictures and video clips emerging of her flipping around on Fifth Avenue in the Ecto-1, and then between takes talking to little kids on the side of the road who were totally stoked to meet a Ghostbuster. And so talking with Acei has been one of those things that I have hoped to be able to do for almost a year, and to finally be able to chat with her and to find that she is as gracious and kind as she is was wonderful. So we're going to get into that conversation in a few minutes. I'm totally excited about it, and I think you're going to find it to be a really cool and fun chat that we had that gives you some insights about those driving sequences. So we'll talk about that in a few moments. We also need to get into some Ghostbusters headlines. But before we do, I need to address a personal housekeeping item that I want to sort of bring up and discuss with you all as audience members and, members of a community who listen to this podcast who I really value and care about. As we're heading into Ghostbusters Day and the 40th anniversary just a month away from today, and with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire releasing on, video and Blu-ray, or rather on streaming video in the last 24 hours, things are really exciting for all of us as fans, right? There's so much cool stuff happening in the Ghostbusters fan community right now, whether it's video games, comics, cartoon series that are coming, toys that are still coming out that we may have more announcements about at Ghostbusters Day from Mondo. I mean, all kinds of cool stuff. And it's so exciting and so awesome to talk about this stuff with you all. It's a joy to have the podcast and to talk with you about it each week, to engage the DMs that come back to me, the comments, etc. All of that is lovely and wonderful. That being said, there's an important thing that I've decided I want those of you who listen and interact with the podcast each week and who bring me into your ears and into your life on a weekly basis to know about. In the last couple of weeks, things have been a little more difficult here. My family and I have found out that my mother has ALS. You may also know of that as Lou Gehrig's disease. Without getting into the scariest details, because let's be real, you don't need me to cry while you drive to work or go on a run or do whatever else it is you do while you listen to Extraplasm. This is a debilitating illness for which there is no cure and no treatment, and there's no known cause. This is a situation where the body's motor neurons shut down while a person suffering with the condition remains 100% cognizant and fully aware of their circumstances. And essentially their body turns off while they are still totally with it, and they end up not being able to speak, swallow, etc. And so for once on the podcast, I'll say I digress and really want to. But to be clear, my mom is really important to me. And like many of you and your moms, I wouldn't be a Ghostbusters fan without her chasing down my original Kenner Fright Features figures, or helping me make an Egon Spengler Halloween costume at age 9, or helping me flag down the ice cream man just to get a Ghostbusters frozen treat on a hot summer day. And I think it's important to be honest and open about mental health and emotions with people. And right now, for me, things are a little more challenging than they usually are, as we're sort of juggling the need to be responsive to my mom's needs and be supportive of, what may now be a sort of long journey together as she navigates this situation, while also managing some personal grief. So what does this mean? Well, it means that things may become a little unpredictable with respect to Extraplasm, and things here at the Extraplasm Firehouse, as I'll be heading back east to see family and make sure that I get some time with my mom. That means I'm going to be leaving Los Angeles at the beginning of June and heading back there for a few weeks. The upshot of that is that although things are terribly bleak and sad, it does mean I will be back in the NYC area for Ghostbusters Day. And if all goes as well as planned, as I'm not really sure that any of it's well at all, that means you'll likely find me at the Firehouse on June 8th to celebrate and see friends. So, hey, at least there's that. There's some sadness going on and there's some things that need to be prioritized in life. But at least I know that I will be spending Ghostbusters Day and celebrating the 40th anniversary of the franchise we all love with friends and in a place that we all care about and love. If that does also mean, however, that if there's anything that does turn up to happen here in Los Angeles, I won't be able to attend it. And to be real, for those of you out there listening who are like, wait, really? Is there still no announcement of anything happening on the 40th anniversary of Ghostbusters at the Sony lot? I just want to remind you of one quick thing. The last time they did that, they didn't even let anyone know that they wanted to do it until May 26, 2022 for an event that took place on June 8th. So if you're wondering whether or not Sony can still wait to announce an Ectofest style event on the lot, yeah, they totally can. They've done it before. But leaving that aside, if anything does happen here in Los Angeles, it won't be something I'll be able to cover because I'll be back east in New York, or around the New York area. Beyond that, I want to make clear that the podcast matters to me and you matter to me. And it's the positivity that you all engage the podcast with that makes this fun to do every week. Along the same lines, that is positivity that I am trying to lean into in the light of other things that are going on. But I need you all to know that what's going on may mean that I have to take a week off from here or there, or I may need to make some scheduling changes to how we do things to adapt to what's going on. Everything's really still ambiguous and it's early days on figuring out what goes on next. We're just all still kind of reeling and figuring out how it all works. So the podcast isn't going anywhere, but I just want you to know that there may be some uncertainty that plays out, and it may mean that I may at a certain point have to step aside in order to manage other things that are going on for a week or two, or maybe, hopefully, I hope not longer at any point, but the podcast isn't shutting down. It's not going to go away as a result. It may have to take a deprioritization to other things in life because my mom matters and my family matters, but along those lines, I want you to know that the podcast is important to me and you're important to me, and that is something that I'm trying to juggle in the midst of my own family dynamic that is also incredibly important to me. So podcast isn't going anywhere, TLDR, but I hope you'll stick with me as this uncertainty plays out. And along those lines, I want to be direct in saying that, yes, of course, Ghostbusters headlines this week includes the fact that the home video release on streaming has taken place in the last 24 hours, but I will tell you point blank that I have seen none of it. I know that I know what's in it thanks to Jason at Ghostbusters News, and we'll kind of talk about that in a couple moments. But I have not had an opportunity yet to watch the featurettes or the deleted scenes, and I have not had a chance to sit down and enjoy those between their release yesterday and right now when you're listening to this. But rest assured, we're going to get to them, but it may take a little bit longer to do some things, and it may mean that maybe Extraplasm will have to consider whether or not it's the most timely thing. That being said, if you need something as a more timely resource than Extraplasm, you can of course go and look at Ghostbusters News at any given point because Jason does an outstanding job over there. And that's why we love having him on the podcast over here and doing things like, I don't know, going to a movie premiere and covering things with him because he's good at what he does and he's a genuinely nice person. And along the same lines, you've got other podcasts out there in case we have to take a week off at some point, like the Cross Rip or, Yes Have Some, who we've always supported on the show. They're folks, they are podcasts that I have loved when I was a fan of podcasts before I was a podcaster. But, I would be remiss if I didn't take almost 10 minutes to tell you that this show matters to me and you all matter to me as I'm trying to juggle this situation, almost 2 years into doing this. When we come up to August, we're going to be at 2 years of Extraplasm episodes almost every week. And so this is a routine for me. It's not just a hobby at this point. It's not a business. It doesn't make any money at all, but it's certainly something that has become a community that is very important to me and far more important to me in that sense than it is as a business or a profit bearing entity, etc. So With that bit of housekeeping and public vulnerability out of the way, thanks for listening. Thank you for your patience. And now, let's go cover some Ghostbusters headlines.
Still making headlines all across the country, the Ghostbusters are at it again.
Today, the entire eastern seaboard is alive with talk of incidents of paranormal activity.
Phone-in topic today, ghosts and ghost busting.
Extraplasm, read all about it. Ghostbusters headlines coming at you.
In Ghostbusters Frozen Empire news, the box office run has now reached at least $195 million, with over $110 million domestic and over $85 million international, or at least that's what it was as of this weekend's past numbers, according to Box Office Mojo and Jason over at Ghostbusters News. And I want to say this, like, that means that if you're among the folks who have been so concerned about the film's profits in relationship to its rumored $100 million price tag, and you have been so worried that, like, the movie wasn't going to bear a profit and that meant that Ghostbusters was just over now and that's how it is, rejoice, because the movie appears to have doubled its money before even reaching home video sales or rentals, be they digital or physical. And as I've been saying for weeks, there's no real doom or gloom on the horizon for fans of the Ghostbusters franchise based on the film's performance at box office. If anything, like, if you're in a Sony boardroom, I imagine in the next few weeks, Ghostbusters is likely the hero franchise on the Sony lot right now, when you consider that the other big movie that came out as their Q1 franchise, like, IP release was Madam Web. And that's a movie that literally cost a reported cost of between $80 and $100 million, so essentially the same cost as Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and it took in only $43 million domestically and $56 million internationally for just under like $100 million. So that's a movie that they hope to break even with, I guess. So if you're like thinking about how executives look at movies and all these different things, like, consider that right now, out of the things that were invested in for Q1, Ghostbusters is the thing that's raking in money and is raking in, the profit. And that's before we even get to, the numbers that have come off of home video sales or rentals. And, just as much as, we were talking about that and those home video sales and rentals, surprise, the streaming release is out. And so if you want to buy the movie for $24.99, or if you want to rent it for $19.99, which I imagine may come down later, we'll see, you can now get Ghostbusters Frozen Empire from most major streaming platforms that allow you to purchase or rent movies, including Amazon, Apple, YouTube, and the like. The digital edition is now available and comes with a host of extras that I have admittedly, as I said, yet to be able to sit down and enjoy. So, we're going to do that in a subsequent episode. I want to sort of dig into all the featurettes and deleted scenes and kind of talk about them and what they mean and how we feel about them and, etc. But if you're wondering if you should plunk down the money now to see the film at home, or if you should go back to the box office and try and grab one more before it goes, here's what's included in the digital release. There is a featurette called Returning to the Firehouse, Making Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, that's about 20 minutes long. Another featurette called Busted, Capturing the Ghosts of Frozen Empire. An Easter Eggs Unleashed featurette. One on the score, which apparently, friend of the podcast, Troy Benjamin over at the Crossrip was involved in filming. I believe if you go and look at his social media accounts, he has posted a photo where he was caught in his own footage somehow, which is kind of amusing. That does mean that Troy is inside of Ghostbusters media. Congratulations, Troy. That's awesome. As well as a featurette called Manifesting Garaka, another one called New York New Gear, and a final one called Welcome to the Paranormal Discovery Center. Each of those is about 4 to 7 minutes long. And then there's a couple deleted scenes, one called Headlines, another called Ghost Chopper, another one's called I'm a Doctor, and then 2 more called Rooftop Constellation, News Report, and a final one called Slime Bath, which I would imagine might be when those slime blowers that we didn't get to see used in the movie, but we did see in the marketing, might have turned up. We'll see. Again, I haven't seen these yet. I would just be guessing. I'm amused by the fact that there's one in there called Headlines, and I'm like, can I rob from it and use it for the headlines segment? Who knows? But a heads up real quick, if you're going out and grabbing the digital version of this, you may find that the extras are not included depending upon where you get it. But if you're in the United States and you go to the Movies Anywhere website, which you can go and find over at www.moviesanywhere.com, you can actually go and essentially register your purchase through there to access the different featurettes and stuff, depending, so it's like if you go to, I don't remember for real, I don't recall where people were getting this when I saw it earlier today, but apparently people were grabbing it from Amazon and not finding the extras, and then they were later. The point here is this: regardless of where you buy it, you have access to those materials if you're in the US by going through Movies Anywhere. If you're international, you may find that that's going to change what is actually included, and so you should probably look over the various stuff pretty carefully, or I don't know, consider using a VPN. That's always fun. So there's options out there for you to get the movie at home at this point. I will be honest in saying that, like, I want to see these as soon as I can. I also am a little torn because I'm like, what's going to be on the, the physical release when it comes out? And we don't even have a release date for that yet. So I was really kind of surprised to see the movie come out digitally so quickly. We don't even have a release date yet on the physical discs. But I mean, that being said, look, we're a month out from Ghostbusters Day, like literally as of the release date of the podcast. The fact that we have a home video release before that is kind of cool. It means we get to celebrate the entirety of the franchise if we want to. Like, if you want to do a watch party on Ghostbusters Day of all of the movies at home, you totally can now. That's awesome. That's a totally like amazing thing. I'm like, somebody should start like a movement. Let's all have watch parties at home on the 9th. Don't do it on the 8th. Go to the firehouse on the 8th, or go out and celebrate somewhere in your community, I guess. But on the 9th, just kind of take in, like, today we're going to take it easy, sit home and watch 4 or potentially 5 movies, depending upon how you feel about canon. But anyway, an additional home video news, big piece of information, or, exciting information or announcement that's come out is that Warner Brothers Discovery have announced a partnership with Weigel Broadcasting Company for a new television network that's called MeTV Tunes. It's going to be releasing or sort of launching on June 25th. The reason this matters to those of us who are Ghostbusters fans is that for the first time in decades, the real Ghostbusters is going to be airing on television, and not new episodes. Hopefully one day that would be kind of cool, right? But instead, what we're going to see here is that the old syndicated run of the real Ghostbusters is coming back to television screens and not just streaming on YouTube. And that's alongside a bunch of other cool cartoons from, my youth, things like Bugs Bunny, Scooby-Doo, the Flintstones, Rocky and Bullwinkle. Like, the most exciting things on here, though, that are like the nerdiest things that they have in their list of stuff that they've said they're going to be airing are things like Beetlejuice, The Mask, and Police Academy, which, like, if you've never seen the Police Academy cartoon, is totally ridiculous. But it also had a Kenner action figure line that came out around the same time that has a playset that, like, its firehouse, or rather its police station, rivals the Ghostbusters firehouse. It almost looks like, I always sort of jokingly say, it looks kind of like the Engine 23 of the Ghostbusters universe. Like, if you needed the other firehouse in Los Angeles, you could get the Police Academy one and put it next to your Ghostbusters firehouse from Kenner that you've already got. But leaving all that aside, this is pretty cool. There's going to be, Ghostbusters cartoons that are out there as part of syndicated runs alongside all these other things. The MeTV Tunes platform is going to be accessible across over-the-air broadcast television and then traditional and virtual cable operators, as well as some supported ad-supported streaming services. So it sounds like there's going to be a lot of different ways to access this content. One of the things I'm eager to see is which versions of the episodes we're going to get. If you're a hardcore real Ghostbusters fan, then you may know that there are some episodes in the run that were originally voiced by Lorenzo Music, who's the original voice of Peter Venkman. And then when they were aired in the syndication, they were redubbed with Dave Coulier. There are some episodes likewise that have Laura Summer and some that do not, right? So there's also some episodes where there are title cards that are missing, and other episodes where there's different actual background artwork behind the Ghostbusters as their animated cells are moving on screen. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what we get, like what are the actual source episodes that they're going to utilize for this, and what quality are they going to be in. And so to me, that's probably the most exciting part about this, is that not only are they going to be showing these in a sort of traditional television format, but that when they do, we're going to have an opportunity to see what they're actually going to show us and what the source material is. So Stay tuned for more information on that. Again, MeTV Tunes launches on June 25th, and you can keep your eyes peeled. Check and see if maybe your local cable operator is going to be carrying it, or if we get more information about where it's going to happen or where it'll be available online, we'll bring that to you as well. Let's talk about some Ghostbusters merchandise news for a few minutes. And first off, I think that maybe we should have had a Ghostbusters Frozen Empire International Food Fair, because while we received very few domestic food promos here in the US, we got the Rice Krispie treats and we got those cookies over at Insomnia Cookies, but we really didn't get much else in the way of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire food tie-in other than icy stuff at the theater. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening internationally, especially in Europe. And we've talked about the fact that the Italian food brand Yummers has had a variety of different products, including cotton candies. And there's been pizzas that are happening over in Italy and things. Now there's a ready to drink protein shake from the UK brand UFit that you can get. These are not new products with new flavors that are kind of like the energy drinks we've talked about or the pre-workout drinks we talked about in recent months, but rather these are existing protein shakes that have been branded as Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, specific stuff. And they have packages that have Slimer and the mini puffs on them. So if you're in the UK, you can check these out. They're called UFit protein shakes. They have flavors including white chocolate, strawberry, banana, and salted caramel. And if you are buying these, you can apparently enter to win a contest for one of 10 prize packs, which I guess 2 of those prize packs are trips to New York City, which is kind of cool. So you have to be in the UK, of course, to get this and to enter. So if you want to check it out, you should go and check out your local grocery store, I guess, if you're in the UK. And the other thing that's apparently happened in the last week that Ghostbusters News has reported on is that American Day Donuts in Brazil has a series of different Ghostbusters themed donuts on hand, with one having the No Ghost logo on it, that it has a filling of strawberry and then has white and chocolate beads on it. And then there's a Slimer donut that has, brigadeiro and white chocolate and sprinkles on it. So these are, if you're in Brazil, I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. If somebody messages back and is like, hello, I am the one Extraplasm listener in Brazil, I'm like, cool. Can you send me a donut? I don't think that's going to work out well for us in the long run, but hey, why not try it? But if you are listening and you're in Brazil, go check out the Brazilian donut and cookie shop, American Day. And if you want to see what these look like, even if you're not in Brazil, go over to ghostbustersnews.com where Jason's got coverage of this because he's got photos of the different donuts that were available and on hand. I gotta say, I would have appreciated some Ghostbusters donuts. We haven't seen any since Krispy Kreme did that way back in 2016. So, and I know that the Ghostbusters Afterlife food tie-ins didn't go so well because of COVID, and maybe there was some trepidation there this time around on that. But it's the 40th anniversary. Maybe we'll still get some stuff here in the US. I'm hopeful for it. I gotta be honest, at this point, although I don't eat a lot of frozen pizza because I make my own pizza regularly, I'm a little jealous of the amount of Ghostbusters pizza out there that I didn't get to eat, damn it. Anyway, let's talk about things that you can't eat that are coming out in Ghostbusters merchandise. HalloweenCostumes.com has announced a holiday sweater that's going to be coming out on October 15th. It's priced at $49.99 and features the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's a pretty cool sweater. You can go and check it out at HalloweenCostumes.com and try to skip all the way to the end of their current offerings to find it in the coming soon pile. Or you can go to Ghostbusters News and check out Jason's coverage of it. You can actually go and click the notify me button to find out more information about when it's going to be available for you in your size. And then you can pre-order it once that happens, but it's not available for pre-order yet. It's just got a product page. It's a pretty cool looking sweater. I got to be honest, although I'll be fair in saying that I also really dig those sweaters from Ripple Junction that previous Extraplasm host David Miyakawa made. So, don't forget about those. Those are still on Amazon if you're looking for sweaters, and those are not necessarily holiday themed. So I kind of think they're a win, but I digress. The point here being that the Halloween Costumes holiday sweater is coming. You can check it out. If you're a sweater completist, you're going to need this one because it looks really good. In unofficial Ghostbusters merchandise news, perhaps my favorite unofficial Ghostbusters merch headline I'm going to tell you about is really more of a tease than a headline. But if all has gone according to plan, on the day this podcast is released, you'll be able to go over to phantasmtoys.com and pre-order something that's 6 inches tall, dark, and horny, or perhaps more accurately, 6 inches tall, blue, and horny. Tony and Brendan at Phantasm have been teasing a figure for the last couple of weeks that's inspired by the big bad of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And the most recent tease is that a cold front would be arriving today, May 8th, and that fans should get their parkas. So if you are listening to the podcast right now on May 8th, you hit pause. Well, you don't even have to. You probably just multitask. But either way, go check out phantasmtoys.com or the Phantasm Toys Instagram account to see what they have in store. I have a feeling that you're going to find that it is quite chilling. And to add on to our previous discussion of Ghostbusters Day in New York City, the Buffalo Ghostbusters have now launched their t-shirt design for this year's event, featuring the same logo that they've used on the patch they have on offer as well, and that we talked about last week. Fun fact, those patches sold out like nearly instantly, and they now have a pre-order available for those as well that you can go and find on their Facebook page. And that pre-order is going to be for a future run, given that they sold out of them. But if you don't want to wait to get patches and you want to get something now to celebrate the 40th anniversary while also supporting firefighters, you can head over to TeePublic and check out the Buffalo Ghostbusters store over on TeePublic to take a look at two different designs that they have that celebrate the 40th anniversary and the event that's going to be happening at the firehouse. One of those designs features the logo that for the 40th anniversary that they have put out for the patch in the standard red no logo on top of a white ghost. The other has a black logo and is featured on a red shirt and a callback to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire's parkas. So all the proceeds for these shirts go towards the efforts to raise money for the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, which is an organization that benefits firefighters and that was founded in tribute to New York Fire Department firefighter Steven Siller, who was unfortunately lost in the 9/11 attacks, at this point, about 23 years ago. So this is something that you can go and get because it's cool and you're a Ghostbusters fan and it celebrates the 40th anniversary. And I mean, to be real, there is no actually officially licensed 40th anniversary t-shirt for you to buy right now. So why not get this one? But leaving that aside, like, you're also going to do something productive and positive at the same time by helping out firefighters in need and what have you. So if you want to take a look at this, go ahead and check it out. www.tpublic.com/user/Buffalo-Ghostbusters is the place to go to take a look at the Buffalo Ghostbusters store. And while you're there, if you've missed out on previous year's shirts from their events, you can actually get those. They actually have like the 2022, the 2023 available for order as well. So, go check that out if it's something you're into. And again, don't forget about the Ghostbusters Day event that's happening in New York City. If you're in the area, if you want to come out, there's a lot of cool things that's happening there. Joe Cirillo's coming out again this year. The Alessi brothers are coming out to perform Saving the Day. I'm apparently going to be there now. So of course, that's the reason to come, because I'm so cool and you got to see me. I'm kidding about that part, but it's a really great opportunity to come out and celebrate something with fans. And having just been at the premiere, a few weeks ago, or at this point, almost, a month and a half ago, that's a circumstance where I can now say that being around a bunch of fans of the Ghostbusters Firehouse is a really joyful thing. Like, I have to say, as much as I'm sad about the other things that are going on in my life that I talked about at the top of the podcast, the fact that I'm going to get to see my friends again and hang out with everybody who is so positive and so well-meaning in that context, once again, is something that is actually giving me a lot of hope to look forward to. So if you're coming out to the New York City event, I hope to see you there. If you're not coming out to the New York City event, fix that. Come out to the New York City event. What's wrong with you? You had one job. I'm just kidding, but please come out to the event. It would be great to see you there. And I'm sure that the Buffalo Ghostbusters would love to have the support and all of the fundraising potential that we can muster to help them get for the firefighters out there in New York City. Okay, so that about wraps up Ghostbusters headlines for this week. Let's go now to my conversation with Acei Martin, stunt performer on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and as far as I'm concerned, now officially the podcast's senior most expert on what it's like to ride through New York City hanging out the side of an Ecto-1. Joining me on Extraplasm podcast, someone who I've been so eager to talk to ever since I saw the first photos of them whipping around corners in an Ecto-1 way back in June of 2023. A performer who you've all seen if you've seen Frozen Empire, even if you don't know that you saw her. Acei Martin is joining us on the podcast today. And Acei is the stunt performer who performed the role of Phoebe Spengler in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Acei, how are you doing?
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful. Yeah, happy to be here.
I'm so stoked to have you on. And I sort of joked about this like many, many months ago when those images first came out. I saw you strapped into the Ecto-1. And the thing that like warmed my heart and made me go, I need to talk to this person, was there were these video clips of you talking to kids who were just like walking up to you in the Ecto-1 and you were engaging them and like talking with them as if they were talking to a Ghostbuster. And I was like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know how many times they've done the same like spin around the corner and they must be exhausted at this point from doing all this work. And the fact that they are doing the work to be an awesome like fan ambassador to these little kids makes me go, I need to know you. It's just like, I want to talk to you about your story because I think that's so cool. It was so heartwarming to me. So welcome to the show, because it's been like something where I've been so hopeful to be able to talk to you about this for a while.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, that's so important to me because, you know, I grew up as a Ghostbusters fan. So how could I not? I mean, it's exactly what I would have wanted as a kid. And the kids were so great and so excited. And yeah, it just meant so much to me to be there and to be able to help those experiences happen.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. And it was one of those things where I kind of joked like that. I remember my first Ghostbusters experience as a drive-in 1984. And like I was there when it came out, the night it came out, and I was like 4 or 5 years old. And it's like one of my first memories burned in my brain. If I were a kid who came around the corner on like a random Father's Day in 2024 and there was like the Ecto-1, I probably would have lost my mind. And so I thought it was just so cool that like you were not only there and filming and doing all those great things, but the fact that like watching you engage so many people who were just there as supportive fans in kind fashion, as opposed to be like, okay, get me out of this chair, I'm done.
Oh no, goodness, no. It was honestly, you know, for me, just as exciting as everyone else there. I feel like we all got to have that cool experience together.
Yeah, it seems like it. And everybody who I've talked to who sort of had the opportunity to be there and kind of watching it go down seems to have come away from it being like, it was really amazing to see. And so I'm glad to have you here to share some of that story with other folks. Tell me a bit about your background. Like, how did you get involved sort of in stunt work maybe? And how did you get involved in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire?
Yeah, of course. So, let's see, it all started when I was a very rambunctious kid. But I mean, yeah, I was a really active kid. You know, I was a cheerleader my whole life. I took gymnastics, took dance. I was also always a theater kid, went to theater camp and the whole 9 yards. That's what I went to school for. And so I was always doing theater. And then I ended up making the switch into TV and film. And with my background, you know, I was like, oh, what is that? Stunts? Oh, they get to do all the cool things? I want to do that. So yeah, I worked really hard, trained really hard to kind of, you know, the specifics of stunts, right? Fights and falls and all those things. And worked on that and tried to transition from a little bit of acting I was doing and a bit of production work into stunts. And I have been so lucky and so grateful. Yeah, I mean, should I talk about when I got, you know, involved with Ghostbusters next?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I was actually on a different set and I kid you not, in a harness when somebody asked me about it, hanging from the ceiling, and I started kicking my legs. I was so excited. They said, would I want to be in a gunner seat? Would I be willing to do something like that? And that it was for Ghostbusters. And I mean, like I said, I grew up as a fan. So I was like, of course I do. Are you kidding me? And I was in a harness hanging. So I literally was visibly excited about it.
That's awesome.
On a different set. Yeah, I was really lucky. I had some friends, you know, put my name in the hat. And that's where it all started before, you know, we geared up for rehearsals and, you know, did the New York unit.
Is that something that, like, in terms of stunt work, is kind of common that you get approached as opposed to having to audition for roles because of like the training you've had and stuff?
Yeah, I would say it's such a small community. For most stunt performers in New York, we all know each other. So it's, you know, you usually can say, oh, you know, who'd be a great double for that or something of that nature. So a lot of times we do get, you know, just reached out to by our bosses who are the stunt coordinators on the shows about roles, or sometimes, like I said, a friend who knows you, works with you, puts your name in the hat.
That's interesting because like when Kevin Mangold was on a few weeks ago, he talked about the idea that like he hasn't had to audition for a role and he got approached to, sort of not, he didn't get told what the role was necessarily right away when he found out about Slimer, but it was kind of the same thing of like, he's worked as a stunt and creature performer for a really long time. And so there's not a situation where he goes out and auditions for it. And I was thinking along the same lines, like, how would you do an audition call for that? You're like, hi, what skills do you have? Do you have the ability to be thrown around in a gunner seat? Like what does that audition call look like? And so
Exactly.
it would be really weird.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's definitely, times that there's more stunt acting roles that they do have, you will self-tape for or audition for. But yeah, oftentimes in stunts, that's less common, really.
Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of fascinating and it makes sense. I mean, you need to go find people who are specialists in the kinds of things you want, right? Like you want folks who've been trained in stage fighting and trained in, gymnastics or any of these things, as opposed to, oh, hey, what can you come in and we'll try to see if you have adequate training when you get here.
Right. We'll throw you in the gunner seat. We'll give you a proton pack and we'll see what happens.
Right. And I think about that in terms of the number of actors and performers I've talked to in my life who are like, I totally say I have things on my bio that I'm not able to do. Like, and if you did that in stunts, it would be bad.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say maybe not the move in stunts, right?
Right. Like, yeah, I'm good at bungee jumping. Oh, really? Okay, cool. Could you show us?
Oh, goodness. Exactly. Yeah. I would say it's definitely a department where you would want to veer on the side of caution or undersell your skills a bit, if anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's kind of fascinating. And I'm so glad that like you got approached for it. From the point that you get approached for it and you say yes to it, like what are the logistics involved in sort of planning and making that stunt happen? I mean, like you kind of tipped me off to this before we started recording that you were part of what was going on at the Meadowlands that I'd totally forgotten about, that the Ecto-1 was driving around in the parking lot of the Meadowlands while nothing was going on there. But tell me a bit about this. Like, what's the logistics of making a scene like that pull off?
Geez, well, to be honest with you, like a lot of that is the stunt performers behind the cars. I mean, they were really the ones who, created all that, made sure that everything was set up, put cones where there were going to be streets and avenues, made diagrams of where every fire hydrant was so that we knew every, twist and turn. I mean, Jeremy Fry, of course, the driver of the Ecto-1, he is one of the most amazing drivers in the world, stunt drivers in the world. So that was just incredible to be able to work with these guys and watch them work, because so much of that planning and prep was them. And just to be a part of it and watching it on rehearsal days that I was there was such a cool experience, because these guys are just so good at what they do. And we even, I don't know if you've ever seen this for stunts, but we actually have a lot of times little cars, like little miniature, toy cars that we'll use for our setup. So, they were working on that and just, watching, because I was going to be a passenger. It's really, really cool to watch that process happen and to see it go from the diagrams from the toy cars to the, rehearsal space with just some cones, and then to, like Fifth Avenue or 21st Street, wherever in New York City. It's just, it's pretty cool. I think they had about a week of rehearsals. I think I was only there 2 or 3 days of it. But yeah, we had worked on a lot of those things when I was there. We also tested the bikes and the, car being popped up. It was the taxis, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, you're right. Yes, you're right. I remember that. There was a hydraulic ram that was in those photos. And people were like, that must mean something's going to get thrown in the air. That's right. I forgot about that.
And those guys actually designed those rigs. What makes those stunts happen is their designs. So that is just, I think, the coolest thing. Not like, oh, that's just something we have. It's like, no, they created that so that we could pull off those stunts. And that's just so impressive.
Do you know, you may not know exactly, but do you have an idea of how many different stunt drivers were involved in that sequence that you were strapped in the Ecto-1?
Wow. That's a really good question. I don't know exactly. I would have to estimate I want to estimate like 50. It was a good bunch. Maybe let's say somewhere in the realm of 30 to 50. I'd have to go look at a call sheet to confirm that. But there were a lot of stunt drivers, and so many of them are just such impressive performers or coordinators who are there.
It's interesting to me because, like, I think that, you know, many people watching that sequence might think, oh, okay, they drove the Ecto-1 down the street and then they CGI'd in all these cars. And it's like, no, those are cars. Those are practical. Like, they had to coordinate and choreograph where each car was going to be. And each car needs to be on its mark where it needs to be at the moment it's supposed to be, or otherwise something can go really wrong. And
resetting is just everyone backing up together, you know, for the scene. And that's a whole nother thing that you're like, oh, so interesting to just watch, you know, cars resetting for those scenes and just backing up down, you know, the middle of,
I can't remember what movie it is. It might be Speed, and I can't remember. Yeah. But there was some movie, it's going to drive me crazy, and somebody's going to email me afterwards and tell me, but there's a movie that happened where, like, the way they had to reset, like, where they were using one side of the freeway and they had closed it off in order to do a stunt sequence. But when they had to reset, it meant that all the cars had to, like, drive up to the next exit and then get off and like loop and come back up the northbound lanes.
Oh my gosh, you'll have to let me know, because for some reason that sounds familiar to me too.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. I'm like, is it Speed? And then part of me is like, no, maybe it's something else. Like, maybe it's a Marvel thing. Admittedly, I had watched, not to be like, I know things about stunts to you as you do your job, but like, I'm a big fan of Corridor Crew's stunt performers react series they do, which is really awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen that before. That's a really good one.
Yeah, you have to get on there now and talk about being thrown around in an Ecto-1. That's your next goal. That's
definitely on the list. Absolutely.
If it wasn't, I'm giving you homework. That's it. Like, sorry.
Okay, like, write that down. No. But yeah, no, absolutely. I've seen that before, and such a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating that, like, there was all this choreography that has to go on, and then you tell me that it basically happens within a week. So, like,
it's crazy. I mean, I know that they had, you know, things in the works before then. You know, when I came on, was a bit thrown into the mix because of my position, that I wasn't behind the wheel, that maybe I had a different, you know, a bit of a different experience than some of the guys prepping. But yeah, it is quick. I will say that it is a fast industry.
Yeah, I would imagine so, given even talking to Luke last week, he was suggesting that he drew the entire firehouse design plans in the span of 3 weeks.
Like, crazy.
Like, what do you mean you did all those sets in 3 weeks? It doesn't make any sense to me. But it's pretty amazing. So from your perspective, what do you think was the most challenging thing about that sequence? I mean, other than being like, I'm being thrown around in a car.
I mean, yeah. So I would have to say, you know, Jeremy's role, right? Like, driving that thing. This is a very old car. This is a very big boat of a car that's very, you know, comes with anything else of a late 50s car, right? Like, all of that was so impressive. I mean, to watch him do 180s in this thing, to watch him, you know, handle it so well. I mean, that I would say is the biggest challenge, is to time everything out. You know, even something that might look like one thing in the film, it takes weeks of prep. It takes so much to make sure that all works out well, right? Like, you see the bike coming through, you see the crash, all of these things that are so particular, and if done, you know, wrong, is extremely, extremely dangerous.
Right.
You know, like, being in a car with most other people would be a very different story than being in as a passenger of Jay Fry's car. You know that you trust this person and you're trusting them with your life, because there's really not much of an escape route when you're in the gunner's seat.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're buckled in, and it's not like, even if you're flying down the street at 45 miles an hour, you're like, it's cool, I'll just punch out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I actually, you know, I had the racing belt, right? And because it was a racing seat that we built up from that with, you know, different things, neoprene, et cetera. And so I had the belt, and I was like, well, if anything, you know, doors open, I can, you know, take off the belt and try to jump in, should I have that time. And then we put on the proton pack straps, and I was like, well, I'm here for the ride, guys.
Yeah. You're like, just be cool.
And I was like, there goes that.
How many times do you think you shot? Like, how many times did you reset?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I couldn't even guesstimate I don't think I'd be right if I even tried to guess. It was a, long reset. It was definitely not just super quick resetting each of these shots, and I know that they were able to get what they wanted and pretty quickly in terms of, the actual take, but the prep between each setup, between each shot, and the resets between each take. I don't know. I don't even know if I could take a guess on that. I don't think it was extensive, but I know anything I'd say would probably be wrong.
Fair enough. I mean, I just think about it from the standpoint that like the actual sequence we're talking about is how the movie opens, right? We get the fire, we get the previous history, old school firehouse, we get a Robert Frost poem, and then we're in it, right? Like, and that's right. Anytime we at that point see Phoebe where we're not looking at McKenna straight in the face, we're looking at you pretty much, right?
Yeah, I know. I was really surprised because, so many times you just see so few pieces of what you've actually filmed.
Yeah. I mean, I joked about it that like having seen the movie enough times now, I've talked about in the podcast that I watch the sequence and I go, McKenna, Acei, McKenna, Acei, like as I watch it, because I'm like, and it's like, that's not a bad thing. Cause like, people are like, well, does it mean it breaks down that it didn't work? It's like, no, it works great. I've seen the movie enough times that I can tell who's who and what's going on and sort of the camera angles. But it made me wonder how long it took to shoot it all, like shot by shot, because you figure that the sequence itself is like probably less than 5-6 minutes, right? Like before you're moving on, but it's like 3 days of shooting. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, we worked on that for 2 weeks, that unit. So for anything that was filmed in New York, at least, we had about a 2 week unit, right? So we had 1 week of rehearsals and 2 weeks at least that I was there. So end of May to beginning of June, right? First 2 weeks of June. Yeah, that's about 2 weeks of filming. And, we were shooting from sun up to sundown.
That's amazing. Like, and it all comes down to this little bits and pieces of it. Is there any of it that that didn't got cut? Did they plan anything? It didn't end up happening in the film, or?
I was surprised at how much of the footage they actually used. Usually on things, I'm like, oh, I had this fall or that angle or whatever. I did that however many times and only saw a piece of it. But on that one, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in this a big scene a good amount.
Like those are my legs dangling under that chair.
Exactly right. So I was like, how cool. Yeah, I was not expecting that. I don't think there's really much that I remember that was cut. Everything that we did seemed pretty intentional and ended up in there. And I'm so glad because, that's always feels really rewarding for you when you see your work in there and that things worked out, and everybody from filming to post-production ended up using that for the final product. It's always a really good feeling.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and it's cool because you get to, of course, like then be able to put it in your reel and be able to like tell people like, look what I did. Isn't this cool? But like,
oh yeah,
you're kind of right. I mean, like stunt performers often are the people blasting through a window, and you get the close up on the actor before the window and the close up on the actor after the actor after the window on the floor. Right. And it's like, cool. I get to see 3 frames of somebody blasting through a window because somebody threw them through it. And you don't get that much, but that's why I thought it was so cool about your performance is that, yeah, you're in there. Like it's kind of cool.
It's super cool. I mean, I am so grateful. It's funny because before when we were like, oh, I can tell, I know, okay, Acei McKenna. It's funny because I do that with my friends. Like no matter how good of a stunt double they are for someone, I'm like, oh, I recognize that front tuck. It's so funny because I'm not even kidding. I will not even know somebody worked on a project and I will recognize the stunt performer by their movement.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. That's pretty cool. I mean, in this case, it was like, I knew they were never going to, I knew McKenna never went to New York. So it was like anything that wasn't, like the easy tell is like, is it straight on? Yep. That's inside of the green screen car. Like, whereas this is, the behind shot of people's heads. Somebody else talked about this. I can't remember who suggested it, that there is a behind shot of the family in the car and that they think it's actually you all.
Oh, you have to send that to me. I want to see because I might be able to help figure that out.
I think it's the shot of when the camera looks through the car and through all their heads at the Hell's Kitchen, the sewer dragon, like in the windshield. Somebody has suggested that it's the stunt performers that are actually in that scene and not the original cast. And I have to go back and look at it and figure out who's talked about it. When it comes out on home video, this will become so much easier to go, hey, look what we can do now. We can go frame by frame and look at it,
Yeah.
But I think it's so neat. Just think it's so awesome that you had the opportunity to do it. When you were doing the performance, did you have a grasp of like what they were telling you to shoot at? Or they just like, imagine a ghost? Or like, did they give you some sort of direction of like what this thing was?
I did know it was a sewer dragon. Yeah, I could not obviously share that with anyone, but I did know. And it did help me that, they kind of said where we were going, what was happening in the scene. I had read, the sides and seen actually a pre-visual scene with the actual cast. So I had an idea of the spots that we needed to fill in. And, like I said, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. So I'd seen all these films. I'd seen, the gunner seat in Afterlife and kind of had a feel for that, as well as, of course, Phoebe Spengler and her character. So I tried to keep those things in mind, right? We had a little bit of direction on that in terms of, she's confident. She knows what she's doing, right? She's not just flailing around in the seat. This isn't the first time she's been in it. And so I tried to keep all of those things in mind because obviously they were in London. I didn't have the chance to speak with McKenna and see exactly what her vision was for it. So I had to rely on, those decision makers there who were giving me feedback and hope that I was doing a good job with that and that I was, doing what was called for it.
I was thinking about it because you can think about other sequences that involve ghosts and you can have a stand-in performer who can be there as the ghost, or you can have some sort of visual representation on screen for a performer to do eye tracking with or whatever. And in your context, it's like, none of that exists. It's just like, you have to
look in the sky and then it turns down here and it's maybe about this level of buildings, but it's a constantly moving point. That's right. So I was just kind of imagining, honestly, I felt like a kid again. I was, I really felt like a kid there. I was thinking about it like I am in this gunner seat for real, shooting this, shooting my proton pack on to the sewer dragon. I was in it. I felt like a kid. are you kidding me? I had the time of my life there. So I think awesome. It's just like having the imagination to see that and be in the moment and hope that, you're doing what the action and the scene calls for in that moment.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you have like sort of the wherewithal to stay composed in that, context, because you are still whipping past parked cars. Like, you're still, all of those things are happening. Yeah. And yet you've got to sort of have the mental focus to go, okay, in the sky right now, next to that building, there is a ginormous 20-foot long dragon that is spectral and blue. So, okay, which part of it am I shooting right now? And so it's kind of interesting to think about.
It's true. And also just kind of keeping, eye line on both that, but also, the things happening around me a little bit as well, having that kind of peripheral focus on things to make sure you're also heads up and looking out for anything that could go wrong. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, there's that need to sort of preserve yourself while also trying to make the scene happen. And like, to use an analogy, like I admittedly swim a lot. And so somebody talked about this recently. They said that swimming is an interesting activity because it's the only exercise you do while you actively try to deprive yourself of oxygen. Like, because you're like, I can't breathe while I do this, but I also need to manage my breathing. And I was like, that's an interesting thing to consider. Like, that it is fundamentally different than, say, running or playing soccer or doing these things, because in all of those, you want to get as much oxygen in as you can all the time. When you're swimming, if you did that, it would be really problematic. Right. And to me, like, kind of juggling all of the little pieces of a stunt performance like that isn't very, very much the same way. It's like, you've kind of got to preserve your own safety and well-being at the same time as you also think about whether or not your form is correct, whether or not your eye line's correct, all those kinds of things. So
many, exactly. There's so many factors to consider. And some are, obviously your life can depend on.
You've talked about this a bit, that you sort of have a lifelong relationship with Ghostbusters. Would you say you were a fan of the cartoon? Were you a fan of the movies? Like, what was your sort of relationship with Ghostbusters coming into it?
Definitely the movies. I didn't know the cartoons super well, to be honest. So apologies for that. But I remember even just as 5 years ago now, I went to Halloween Horror Nights and I was so excited for the Ghostbusters, tent. I have actually my favorite hoodie I own is a Ghostbusters hoodie that actually folds up, or like it folds into itself into a backpack with the Ghostbusters logo. It is the coolest thing. And it has, all the characters on the back. It has, Slimer and Gozer and Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, everyone. And here, actually, I can show.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you've got it with you. That's great.
I have all my things. I just didn't know what we were going to talk about. And I was like, let me have all my things over here. I actually got one of these magazines, the Ghostbusters Complete Fan Guide one.
Yeah.
And I've gotten that. I have all my little wrap gifts. I mean, it meant a lot.
Have you started a Phoebe Spengler action figure collection at this point?
No, but I can't wait to start. Now I'm going to start tomorrow.
Yeah, no, you have to get yourself a Phoebe action figure. That's the deal. That's
actually a really good point. You're not. Yeah, you're right.
Like that is a prerequisite. Like that's moving forward. You need to get the things that represent the character you portrayed, so that way you can be like, this is my shrine of awesome.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have like an Ecto license plate. That's the first thing I see when I walk into my room. And so, yeah, I don't know. I have all these little reminders, little things that we did for each other on set. And it was just such a special one for everyone because I don't know. Who do you know who doesn't like Ghostbusters?
It's true.
Right? Like, I don't know anyone and I don't know if I would trust them.
Look, I can actually have this weird conversation with you. And it's not like weird, like, let's have a weird conversation. But I mean, like, this is a weird comparative conversation. Like, you are a person who has rode in an Ecto-1 in New York City. Like, and you rode in the real one. Like, you rode in the actual one. Like, you know Ectotech Greg and Nick from Ecto-1 NJ. They picked me up during the premiere at like 5th and like 60th. And then we drove your route. Like we actually like came down and went to the firehouse, but we came down through where you all were shooting. And they took me in the car on a tour. And I wasn't hanging out the gunner seat and shooting anything. I was just in the car. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing.
Like, it is so cool. I mean, all of us agreed. All of us who were in the car were like, it's one of those that it's not, you don't take for granted for a second. You're there, and every moment you're there, you're so grateful to be there. I mean, I cannot tell you how much I geeked out the moment they had a proton pack that I had to put on for a photo in my fittings. I took a minute I had to compose myself. I was that excited. I kid you not. I was like, my voice went a pitch higher. I was like, and then, I mean, getting in the Ecto and finding out that it was the original Ecto, come on, that's so freaking cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's if it's the one of the originals, then it would be the 1A because the original is actually on the Sony lot.
Right, that's
this is the part where I get nerdy.
Yes,
and I get nerdy and technical.
So wait, you help me with this. Am I right? Is it was it the one from, I believe it was like 1950? Is it 8 or 9? Is it 9?
What, 1959 is?
Right.
Yeah, the Ecto-1 is a 1959 Miller Meteor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's so cool. It was really, Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, but like and having ridden in a replica, like it's kind of weird. Like I kind of think about this. It's funny because now, like years ago, we would go the Ecto-1 and we would think about the one that was on the Sony lot. Right. But now there are 3 cars that literally represent the Ecto-1. There's the original. There's the one you rode in New York, and there's the one that was in the UK that was on the set there. And so like there's 3 cars at this point that all represent the same character. And then what we do as fans is argue about whether or not Ecto-1A is a separate car. And when there's really 2 cars in the universe.
I want to hear more about this actually, because this is, I need to be educated about this.
Well, there's people out there who will tell you that Ecto-1 and Ecto-1A are 2 different cars in universe. They'll tell you that like they must have made Ecto-1 and then they closed down the business. And then when they did We're Back in Ghostbusters 2, they went and got a completely different 59 Miller Meteor and painted it, which is absurd.
Right. Well, I mean, right. Cause it's not what we think of, right? We don't think of that one. I mean, at least I don't as much.
I don't. A lot of people who do though.
Okay. I'm sorry to those people who do.
No, it's okay. Like you won't get fired. But I've learned this making the podcast over the years that like there are folks whose first access point to Ghostbusters was not the first one, but it was Ghostbusters 2.
Really? So they think of it with that tape and with the different elements.
Yeah. And they they love it because it's like there were people who, for me, I was 4 when the first movie came out. And so the first movie is the first movie. But there's some people who, when they were kids, they were fans of real Ghostbusters as a cartoon. And then Ghostbusters 2 came out in 89. And so their first experience on an actual big screen, because their parents were like, no, we're not taking you to the theater to see this thing. For the first one, they saw Ghostbusters 2 as their first big cinematic experience. And so they sort of connect with, and Ghostbusters 2 resonates with them differently than it might with other people. You know, it's kind of very interesting.
Yeah.
But like, it's kind of funky because there are folks out there who are very much like, nope, there were two different cars in the universe. They didn't just take one car and retrofit it and do things to it and then put a new logo on it. It's a completely separate vehicle.
Different car, completely.
It's not. It's the same car. But
that's just the conspiracy behind. Okay. Well, now I know.
But there's 3 cars now that exist. And one of them, of course, it has parts of Ecto-1A as its sort of donor, you know, is sort of where it came from. And so it's kind of interesting to consider that they are now one car for sure, but they're still like the body of that other car is still in there. It's still the DNA of both of those cars is still involved in all those scenes. So it's really weird. But these are all the really super hyper nerdy things that
I love these. No, I love these things though. This is like the stuff that I was trying to find out also so I could share with people on set. You know, it was so cool to learn those facts, you know, those things that weren't just a part of the, you know, new film that we were creating, but a part of the history of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting because it's like we're in a 40th anniversary year this year. And so as much as you say everybody loves the Ecto-1, like or loves Ghostbusters, I kind of agree. Like it's really hard to find people who, you know, you would say Ghostbusters and think, oh, it sucks. Like it's not something
I know, it's not really something you hear. Yeah.
And especially in New York. Like, and that's kind of what I thought was so amazing when riding around in the replica. And this is probably something you can resonate with is people were standing around watching you all film that like in New York City, the Ecto-1 is like a serious celebrity. Like the firehouse is ours. It's part of the city, you know?
Really, people didn't want pictures of it. It was the Ecto. They were like, okay, you guys move. Here's the real star. And we felt the same way.
That's funny. I mean, but it is such a thing though of like New York City in particular, I think has a connection with Ghostbusters at an identity level. You know, that it's like if you're a New Yorker by default, you have to be a Ghostbusters fan. I couldn't agree more.
I mean, and I am a New Yorker. I'm, you know, born and raised here. So that definitely resonates with me as well. It's and like, you know, as well, because from Long Island, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like there's rules. You have to be, if you're from Long Island, you're required to like Billy Joel. It's just in your DNA. If you don't, they excommunicate you and they move you to Jersey and you have to become a Springsteen fan.
You don't have a choice in the matter. Yeah.
Yeah, you're exiled. You have to go. Like you have to leave by way of Staten Island, and you have to pay for the most expensive bridge crossing you possibly could.
No,
to get take the Verrazano and get out. But like it's
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But then Ghostbusters is like one of those required things that as a New Yorker, it's something that movie, the original movie, especially the first 2 movies, represents like very much like the identity of the city, you know?
It's true. Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree.
What, in terms of filming, in terms of being sort of involved in that experience as sort of a New Yorker, is there anything that you wish you could have done in the Ecto-1 that you didn't get to do in New York? Like anything you would have loved to have done in New York City if it had been like your day to go, you get it. It's just yours. You get to drive the car around. You're going to have a stunt team and you can go anywhere you want.
Oh my gosh, what a question. I hadn't thought about it, but the truth is, I think I wish that I was in the gunner seat for longer. I think that was the only thing that was like, I did not want to get out. I wanted to be in it every day. When I found out I wasn't in the seat that day, I was like visibly depressed. I mean, I love hanging out with my friends, or I had all my friends in the car, so that was cool. But I feel like I was in my own world when I was, you know, strapped into the gunner seat. It was definitely a different day when I was in it because it was amazing. But I honestly I lived my dream working on that job, and I had the proton pack and it actually lit up. Like, come on, you know, I really don't. I don't have anything else that I would have wanted to do because I feel like we did it big. It was like, you know, we were actually there. We were filming down the streets of New York City on, you know, weekends, and it's crazy. I mean, such a busy city, and we're just like, we're going to own these streets for a couple days. And to actually be there, to not make somewhere else that they could have made those, you know, that location. That was awesome. I mean, I wish I had something I could say, but the truth is that was like a dream come true.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And that's something that, I think is really part of the fascinating thing about the way that sequence is filmed is, as you're right, like it's a situation where like it's Saturday in June in New York City. It's Father's Day weekend.
Yes,
people are
right.
just like,
we wrapped on Father's Day.
Yeah. So it's like, there's just people out doing touristy things, and it's Fifth Avenue. You're not going to hide it. And I thought about it when you all did it. That some folks were kind of like concerned because they were like, it's things are going to get spoiled. And what I started thinking about was the notion that when they filmed the most recent Joker movie, like, they did that also like right out in the open. Like Lady Gaga was on display, like, here she is, this is Harley. And there was no like attempt to sort of hide that or put it away. And I thought that was kind of an interesting sort of shift almost in the way that movies are made. And I just wondered what you thought about this. Like, do you think that there's a shift from hiding the way that stunt performances and things are shot, like you're not supposed to talk about it, and sort of almost like it's a secret, to now, like today, contemporarily, like there are YouTube channels that literally go, let's talk to stunt performers about how you did what you did.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear the spoiler aspect of it. It's definitely tough when you see things and you can kind of put it together if you know the world. I had actually I was still in production, and I worked on John Wick 3. And my first day, they were like, so he puts his hand on the stairs of the Continental and he's safe. And I was like, spoiler alert, hello. And I was just like a PA on a lockup there. But I was like, well, geez, last scene in the movie. Come on, guys. Like, so I've definitely experienced that myself as somebody on set. I can understand that perspective offset, but just as well, it's so exciting to be a part of it and to be there and watch those things happen. And, remember when you watch the final product, when you watch the film, like, I was there. I watched that happen. I think that's so cool. And talking about the stunts, I mean, I think, to a level, it's definitely it's cool to talk about it because it is true. It's a process that is really in depth and complex, but, like we were talking before, it's stunts do so much and, still have always been so behind the scenes, right? In the past, it's been hidden so much more than today, right? And so now I think it's just cool that people know, that we're here and that we're doing these things and that it's starting to become appreciated right now with Fall Guy. It's hopefully we get that category in the Oscars, huh?
I hadn't thought about that. That's kind of awesome that you said that, Acei. Because like I admittedly, I've talked about this on the podcast openly, that when the concept for the Fall Guy movie was announced, I was like, who needs that? Like, why do we need a Fall Guy movie? I don't know why anybody needs that. And then I went to go see Frozen Empire, and I watched the trailers, and I had no idea what the trailer was that I was watching. I was just like, what is this? This guy's like a stunt performer. And it just didn't click in my brain at all for whatever reason. As I was watching the trailer, I was like, there's a stunt performer who becomes like an action guy who's going to save the world. Like, oh wait, the Fall Guy. That's what this is. And I was like, I got to see this movie. I was like,
oh, how funny. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm so excited. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really excited for that and for, there to be some more focus on stunts because, we are often not really talked about and kind of hidden behind the curtain. So I love it. I'm really excited that stunts are starting to get, a little more recognition and appreciation because for so long they've been doing such cool things. And I'm just thinking about, I'm thinking back in the day when people did things, it's, they used to do fire burns with jeans. They used to use mattresses instead of, airbags. It's just, or boxes. It's so cool to have appreciation for everyone who came before us and to see how much it's progressed, and we wouldn't be here today without them.
I talked with Bill Bryan recently, who, he was performed Stay Puft in the first Ghostbusters movie. And he's of course like done a whole bunch of different creature performance and stuff over the years. And he was one of the people when I was talking with him, we caught up at a comic book event, and he was sort of saying that, during his sort of prime heyday, that the notion of like talking about how you make the thing was not a thing you did. You know, it was like, you wouldn't go like, hey, let's talk about how we cast those molds or how we did any of those things, or, hey, let's talk about how we lit Stay Puft on Fire and how we achieved that.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that in some extent he almost felt like, hey, I kind of missed out on doing that because at the time we didn't do that. You know,
Yeah.
and now
Of everything. And even just the fact that stunt performers existed, right?
Yeah. And I think there's such a new sort of level of transparency to that. I don't know if you want to comment on this or not, because I don't want to like foist you into the situation of talking about something political. But like, one of the things that I find fascinating about this movie is that it was everyone who worked on it, who I've talked to, is like overwhelmingly like is super happy. And it's like, I had an amazing experience and everybody I worked with was so wonderful. And everybody rocked. And at the same time, the industry itself was like literally falling apart. Like, it was the most turmoil.
Yeah, that was one of my last jobs before our strike. That's right.
Yeah. And so it's like that movie, as the rest of the industry is on strike and there's all this tension, all this frustration. And then like there's tensions building between, you know, performers, like primary actors, stunt performers, the folks who are doing, you know, key and grip work, the folks who are doing post-production who are like, hey, if you all don't get up and act, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
all those folks, you know.
Let me clarify. You're right. It was during the writer's strike, but right before the actors' strikes. So WGA was already on strike. That's right. When we were filming that unit. And then it was, you know, just a couple weeks before SAG-AFTRA Actors Union went on strike. And that's the union that we're a part of as stunt performers. So it really was a crazy time. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot that was, one of my last jobs before my strike, but that the WGA was already on strike during the time. What a crazy year, right? I mean, we were on strike for the better half of the second part of the year, and there was really nothing filming. It was a crazy time, and I'm, you know, so grateful that we're back now and, you know, still holding our breath for upcoming potential strikes that could happen, you know, hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. I think the position I maintain right now is just, you know, we've lost so much in the last 5 years. We had COVID, we had the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes, that I'm really hoping that we can figure things out before having to go to another strike. And not saying that anybody should settle for anything, but saying that maybe we can figure it out without putting people out of work again, because we've been put out of work so many times,
right,
or for so long in these last 5 years. Yeah. So,
and it's for you all as stunt performers who kind of like, in some ways, and I don't think, you know, again, this is sort of my assessment of looking at things, is just like, I value your performance so much, and that you are in the chair as a human being who is performing a role, as opposed to like, you know, oh no, you're welcome. Like, but I mean that, like, I think that your involvement and the creative involvement of people who are in those roles is so important. And at the same time, like, when people talk about AI and different elements of, you know, changing performance, I don't want to assume things too overly, but like, I get the impression that to some extent you all are some of the folks who are most at risk. Like, you are doing the most dangerous stuff and the most liable stuff, right? So it's like, okay, how do we just eliminate that? And we just have a computer do it. And you're like, well, that's somebody's job. Like,
yeah, I mean, it is a huge, AI is obviously a huge topic of conversation right now, and had been through our negotiations as well. And it is definitely, you know, like any technology, I think we have that bit of fear of, what does this mean for us? And as stunt performers, and as, you know, the fact that AI is coming about, I think something that I hope for it on a personal level is that people would be informed that the content that they're consuming is AI generated. I think that's a really important thing as things get progressively, you know, as that kind of line of being aware of that thins, that we're at least informed of that, and we can choose, you know, what we want to consume and what are in line with, you know, our values, or just appreciation levels, really.
Yeah,
I do hope that people continue to want to see real stunts performed. I mean, I think they will, for sure, to an extent, but it is definitely scary times. Cause that's our jobs, is to do, definitely be replaced with, AI recreation. And, you know, we'll see what happens. It's definitely scary times, but I mean, the things that my friends can do are pretty dang incredible. So hopefully they keep letting us do it for a long time.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, and like I've seen your reel, and like you have in your reel, like some of your sequences, like being dragged by a horse. And I'm like, if AI did that right now, the performer would have 6 arms and like half a head.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is, like, how do you appreciate just a computer doing something? It's like, for me, I watch these things and I'm like, wow, look at the way that person moves. Look at the way, the level of skill that person has. And I'm a person, like, I as a human being could do those things. That's, I think, where a lot of the appreciation comes from. And so I hope that continues to be, sure, a computer can do something, but where's the motivation in us as human beings to see somebody do something on screen and say, hey, I could do that. That's someone, and that's, for me, growing up, going in the movie theater, I would watch these action movies and be like, wow, like, look at what they're doing. Like, and, stars in my eyes, thinking about me being able to do those things, having that imagination and dreaming of that world where you're, capable of those things. And here I am now as a stunt woman. So
that's pretty cool. I mean, and it's like, some people will watch Die Hard and go, I hope that someday I get to be a big movie star. And some people watch Die Hard and go, someday I hope to be able to go through broken glass.
Yes, I was definitely the second one forever. I always, saw superheroes and been like, that's what I want to do, these cool things. I mean, like I said, that's what geared me into stunts, is like, oh, I get to do the cool things. That's what I want to focus on,
On the counter side to this, in terms of like AI and sort of that worry about sort of digital, I don't like saying replacement, because I'm like, I hate the idea of like, no, let's not replace people. But
we're using that in some of our language as well as, digital replacement or replicas or, things of that nature, because there are a couple ways in which it could be used, right? Whether that's a digital replica, which is actually of ourselves or of an actor, versus, an actual just AI thing that's not created based on any specific person.
I guess what I was going to ask is, like, sort of on the counter side to that, and it doesn't have to be AI.
Right.
Is there particular technological innovation that you think has really enhanced or made stunt performance better?
Oh, that's a great question. I think there is. I think what it is really just a relationship where we can find the balance, right? So where we as stunt performers can continue to do our job, but to have things to help mitigate the risks a little bit, to prioritize safety while still doing these extraordinary things. So in terms of, high falls, people would do high falls over 100 feet and more because, back in the day, we didn't have the option of anything else.
Right.
Versus now, a lot of times we can do still a high fall, but at a lower level, let's say, 50 feet or something of that nature, and still make that work for something that's supposed to be 200 plus feet. So I think that's really where it becomes a resource and something that helps us do more and truthfully save more lives at the end of the day, a way that those stunts can still be created and appreciated without having, we still will always have dangerous jobs. That's comes with the territory, but maybe not consistently as life risking. But, it's tough. I'm not sure if you heard about, in Atlanta last week. So there really are pretty high risks, although we're able to do things to make things as safe as we can and still perform the stunts.
What happened in Atlanta? I didn't catch that.
A car accident on an Amazon set, and it was, a couple people were hospitalized, and it was basically a car stunt that didn't go exactly as anticipated, because that's what happens sometimes, right? It wasn't supposed to be anything particularly gnarly, is kind of the word that we'll use in some of these in stunts. And it ended up being, putting somebody in the ICU ended up being extremely
Oh, wow.
dangerous for something that wasn't supposed to be what happened. And that's why it's so important, that we have stunt performers. I think that's the other thing of the risk level, and to have people who are prepared for things to go wrong. Because sometimes an actor might think that they're comfortable doing what the stunt requires, but not knowing the potential alternative outcomes of something. Right.
Yeah. And I think about that just in terms of like in the wake of what's happened with Helena Hutchins and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And that's not even a stunt performance. That's a primary actor who's like holding a prop, and the prop is mishandled and things go wrong. And so to me, I'm like, I see what you're saying about sort of enhancing safety. If you can use the technology in a way that enhances performance as opposed to replaces performance.
Exactly that. And I think that's the goal. And that's where we have, worked so hard to get to today. And I hope that we continue working together with technology instead of being, intimidated by it.
Yeah. I think that it's really important that performers are given the opportunity to do the things they want to do. And I'll sort of throw my bias out there for a second. I'm like, yes, of course you should all have jobs. You're doing great work. But I think it's kind of an interesting discussion though, because there are those things that you could utilize, that would help to make situations safer. And they don't have to be AI, but they can also be cost saving measures. Like when you discuss something like a high fall, when you don't have to build a 50-foot tall platform and you only have to build a 10-foot one or a 15-foot one, you're saving on costs as opposed to you're also like saving on liability and stuff too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And
interesting.
Thing is rigging systems have been a huge thing of safety to help us do these incredible stunts. We are able to put descenders on things, to put a gold tail to make somebody be able to do those superhero jumps, to do the falls from very, very high, like let's say 200 feet or something, but then that they're slowed at the end of it, right? So that they can remain safe. So I think that's the thing, is just, finding the resources that help us create the vision that we want to create for these films. And to get that, we have so many options, right? We have so many things that we can do and ways that we can do it in. And now we've learned so much from the people who have come before us. And like I said, done fire burns in jeans and jumped off roofs into mattresses.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think about the early cinema of people who were like, people tied down on train tracks who are literally rolling away from a train.
Exactly that. Yeah. And I mean, of course, in film, Sarah Jones, and having that safety is so important. Many times the first shot of the day, it's the Jones shot, and that's in memory of her and to remind everybody to be as safe as we can.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting to think about. There's an ongoing discussion about that and the sort of legacy of carrying that out to, keep people safe. It's kind of awesome. To sort of shift gears a little bit off of like, let's talk about things that can be, scary and bad. Yeah. I have wanted to ask you, if you're given the opportunity, they call you back up and they go, okay, we're coming back and it's Ghostbusters 5. This time we want you to hang from a helicopter, whatever it is. Would you come back? Would you want to do it again?
I am in. I would love that more than anything. Are you kidding me? It's to date, one of the projects I am most, if not the project I am most proud to have been a part of. It means so much to me on a personal level as a fan, and as a professional, on a professional level as well. And got to work with all my friends. I mean, it was truly one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I'm so grateful to have been a part of that film and to be a, world of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great that you're a part of it and that you had a great, performance, and we got to be benefited by it. So thank you for it. I guess the key question now is, beyond your Phoebe action figure you're going to get.
Yes.
Are there other Acei Martin action figures? Like, do you have any other characters that you've portrayed, or will this be your first?
Oh, I think this is probably the first really cool one. I mean, I have done so many incredible projects and all of that, but I think as far as, so many times people are like, oh, you work in movies? Well, what have you done? what have you worked on? What do I know you in? And so often it's such a part of a team that it's not quite that simple, right?
Right.
So no, I think somebody needs to make a Acei Martin action figure for sure. But
So that we'll do that. Rather than you portray many characters who have action figures, we just get an Acei Martin line of action figures.
That's right. Exactly that. But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
I will say that I am working on, and have worked on projects that I'm really, really proud of. I covered a friend who was working on the Penguin, so it was cool to be a little part of that world. And I'm, currently working on Project Goosebumps, and also grew up with that. So
that's awesome. I didn't know you were working on that. That's cool.
So all of these things that are really exciting. But yeah, I mean, what else beats Ghostbusters? Am I right?
I'll say nothing. But
that.
There's some guy who tuned into this podcast the full hour in who was like, no, Batman. he turned it off. He quit just now. He's like, why am I listening to this? Listen, a whole hour of this? These people like Ghostbusters? What's wrong with them? No, I'm kidding. But,
I would say what's wrong with anybody who doesn't. Come on.
No, I agree. And if anybody who has an opportunity to ride around inside of or slightly outside of and adjacent to an Ecto-1, which you get to hold that badge. I think nobody else can be like, yeah, I did that. And that's a real thing to consider, that even those of us who are the most hardcore fans who you collect all the crap we collect and know every fact, none of us can say that we have rode in the gunner seat of an Ecto-1, even the replicas. Nobody's doing that. So that's not a challenge either, everybody. It's not okay, cool, challenge accepted. I'm going to go ride around at 60 miles an hour now in New York City and try not to get hurt with no preparation, no 50 stunt drivers.
Please, for the safety of the stunt, do not do that for your own safety. Oh my gosh. Let me just say, I cannot tell you how grateful I am, how lucky I feel to have been able to do that. I do not take it for granted for a heartbeat.
That's awesome. I think it's great that you had the chance to do it. And I hope that if they do another one, that given that you've been in the seat already, you're well trained. Nobody would have to show you how to use the equipment. They'd be like, this point and shoot.
I would
come
love
back,
anything. Truly, that would be, another dream come true, because this certainly was.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we get to see you in another Ghostbusters movie in the future. But aside from that, anything else that you want to tell people they should be keeping an eye out for, things they should support, stuff that you want people to know about?
Yeah, the truth is, a lot of what I currently work on hasn't been announced yet. So I would say, the best thing to do is if you follow me on Instagram, I try to post things as I'm allowed to, because I can't until things are actually airing. But I will post things there, or my IMDb page often has all my past projects and often has some of my upcoming as well. So you can feel free to find things on either of those. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm hopeful that, you get to continue to engage the Ghostbusters community. If you end up doing things like, deciding, hey, I want to go sign 8x10 people at a con. Don't worry, we'll show up in droves, because that's what we do.
Like I said, I've been overwhelmed with how cool the Ghostbusters, world is, the fans, and I am also a fan. So to be able to be a little part of the community is really meaningful for me. And everybody in the community has been everybody's amazing. Everybody in the Ghostbusters community is absolutely the best people I've met. Everybody's so nice and cool. So I would do that anytime. I'm always happy to be a part of it in any way I can, truly. Speaking of how amazing the Ghostbusters community has been, and to me personally, my brother has been sick for over a year now. He's just been diagnosed with AMPS, amplified musculoskeletal pain syndrome. And so we started a GoFundMe this week, and I've been overwhelmed with support both by my stunt community and by the Ghostbusters community. I've been reached out to about making replica props to sign and have auctioned at raffles, as well as, posters with McKenna and as well as myself's autograph to be auctioned off, and even some of the Ecto Tour proceeds to be donated to my brothers for the next my brother for the next few tours. So please feel free to visit his GoFundMe or, to show up at these fundraisers and hopefully be a part of that. I am, again, overwhelmed with support by the Ghostbusters community and how incredible everyone has been through this. And as I shared this about my brother.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link to the GoFundMe in the show notes for sure.
Amazing,
so people can find it easy. But I sort of, when you and I started talking about doing the show, this had not come up. Like, you hadn't said anything about your brother. And we started to sort of plan this episode. And then you made that post and I looked at it and I was like, well, the least I can do is to help plug Acei into the Ghostbusters charity network. I was like, because as a thank you to you,
So many people have shared it, and it's like, it's pretty awesome to see the Ghostbusters community come together like that. And I have seen that before, right? Like, I had met Justin's family on set, and I've seen people come together for that and help in the Ghostbusters community for that. And it's just, how cool is it that not everybody is just cool, but they want to help the other people in the community. Everybody wants to just help each other and do whatever they can. And, that shows a lot more than just somebody saying, oh yeah, being nice or whatever, but no, they care.
Right.
And that's everything.
And it was kind of cool. Like, I knew, as you started to say the Ecto tours for next month, like I got a message from Nick who, has Ecto 1NJ, and he was like, I told Acei we're going to do tours and whatever we raise can go to her brother. And I was like, I love this. Like, I love that. Like, we're taking a problem and we're like, okay, cool. You are part of somebody who gave us joy and who gave us something that's awesome. So what can we do as a community to help you? And so if you're out there listening and you can even, throw a few dollars to help Acei's brother Carter as he's dealing with amps, check the link that's in the show notes, on whatever podcast platform you're looking at. Usually there's the little special thanks thing underneath that has links to things like Badoochi Studios, but I want you to sort of go take a look at the link and maybe consider helping out. See if you can help to assist Acei and her family as they're helping to care for her brother and keep their family home safe. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's shared, who's donated, who's reached out. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone in the Ghostbusters community. You guys have been overwhelmingly supportive, and my family and me are so, so grateful. And it's going to help my brother Carter Steele more than you know. So thank you.
See, this is the two-sided coin. On the one hand, if you're involved in Ghostbusters, you have to put up with a lot of crazy nerds who are like, you were in Ghostbusters. But on the other hand, they're all like, can I help you?
It's so cool. Yeah. So what an amazing day. What an amazing thing that we've all have as a common interest and love, Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really awesome. And to see the outpouring come out is really great. And so I hope we can continue to support it and give you guys some assistance because, you deserve it. It's important.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim, for everything. I'm so grateful to be here and to be a part of all this.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Anytime you want to come back and chat with us more,
Absolutely.
Anything you have going on, by all means. So,
please, anytime. Seriously.
Thank you so much for coming on with us and chatting, and we hope to get to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
That about wraps things up for Extraplasm this week. I want to say one final thank you to Acei for coming on the show and for being so accommodating and kind and open with her story. One thing I want to reinforce is that if you want to help out, you can really contribute to assist her and her family and her brother Carter with his current medical condition as he's struggling with an amplified chronic pain condition known as AMPS. They are currently facing a lot of medical bills and some pretty significant costs that are putting their home in jeopardy. So if you can contribute, there's a GoFundMe that's linked in this week's show notes. You can help out a member of the Spengler family from Frozen Empire who brought you some joy as you watch the Ghostbusters tear through New York City back in action. Consider doing so via the GoFundMe link. You don't have to donate a lot. You don't have to donate $50 or $100. Even $10, $15 here helps, especially when lots of people do it. Acei was a wonderful guest who's been overwhelmed by the support offered by the Ghostbusters community thus far. It would be great if we could continue to rally to help. Beyond that, I want to say thank you to Brendan Pearce at Badoochi Studios, who provides our logo, and without whom the podcast would look way less interesting and way more boring. Please be sure to go out to Phantasm Toys, take a look at what Brendan has available. I hear that what's out today might be particularly chilling. And of course, I need to thank MAGNAVOX, the vaporwave artist whose version of Ghostbusters serves as our theme song each week. And the most important people I need to thank beyond that are you all, the audience who's listening. You all are great people. I love the community we've built together. We're almost at 2 years of podcasting, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I mean it. Everything I said at the top of the show about how, it's a motivating thing and it's positive for me to be doing the podcast and I get a lot of joy out of it each week. It really matters to me. It's something that I really care about, and I really like hearing from you, especially right now as things are kind of like, hey, a little bleak. So if you're out there, if you have something to share, feel free to reach out via Extraplasm on Instagram, Extraplasm on X, extraplaspmpodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can reach Extraplasm on Facebook via Extraplasm Podcast. And so don't be a stranger. If you have something to share with the podcast, feel free to reach out. As Ernie Hudson reminds us each and every week, stay strong, stay fit, feel good, and
Try to have fun, and always keep on busting. Take care.